Hey, what's up? So we're on to week 3, Genesis 44 through Exodus 14, and it's pretty interesting because Genesis is such a crucial part of the Bible. Obviously, the beginning is pretty important. Well, I mean, all the Bible is actually pretty crucial, but I mean, I guess Genesis is um, probably one of the most popular books in the whole entire Bible. I think Genesis is probably the most popular. I think that's most people go to it. It's obviously like where you start, and I think some people don't really get past Genesis that often. Exodus is a little more complicated. I think as the Bible progresses, from the beginning to the end, it gets more complicated, or less complicated to more complicated. Because I mean, Genesis, you can kind of understand it. I mean, the stories are relatively basic, and then obviously Revelation is almost impossible to understand. I think that we're not allowed to understand Revelation in some degree at least, because then if you understood it, you can change it. And so if you understood what was happening, you'd be able to change what's happening. So in order for you not to be able to change what's happening, you can't understand it. At least I feel to some degree, but I'm not sure. But anyway, so it's Exodus 14 through 4 or 44. Genesis 44 through Exodus 14. And so the five different things that I had that I broke apart was on Monday was the Hebrews go to the land of Egypt. That was Monday, and so on Monday I try to reflect on that, and it's interesting because they were somewhere else. I forget exactly where they were, but they all went into Egypt. Um, you know, uh, Jacob and his Israel, or Jacob and his family. I think there were 70 souls, and then not counting Joseph and Manasseh, and I forget his other son's name, but besides Joseph and his other two kids, there were about 70 of them, and that was Abraham and Isaac's lineage. And so they went from where they were at, and they actually went to Egypt. And I think that's a really big part, and God said that he would deliver them out of he would visit them and then deliver them out of Egypt. And so I think that's just like a really important part, obviously, of history is when the Israelites go and they get established in Egypt. And they had like taskmasters, and then they said that when they afflicted them, they became even stronger. So I think a lot of times, when you give people the grunt jobs, they learn how to build, and then they build their character as well. And so I think that this has like an unintended consequences, at least from those that are in charge, to actually build up the people that they're trying to bring down by putting them in positions that are not really fair or not very honorable positions, at least they think, and they end up becoming honorable positions and end up becoming stronger. And I think morality is reality. So what is reality? Because it's really difficult right now, the time that we're at to even know what reality is. I think that might be in every time, especially when you start realizing certain things and certain things come to fruition and come to the up or the forefront. You start to wonder exactly what reality is, and it can be very scary, I feel like, and unnerving, especially at first. But if for me at least, as I go through a lot of these things, I always try to tell myself, or at least I often tell myself, morality is reality. So what is morality? Morality is based on what God wants you to do, and then you get your instructions from your creator and from the Bible. And so if morality is reality, when you try to be unmoral, it has the consequences of hurting you, and people that are moral, it has the benefits of helping them. So long as you're able to kind of or to understand this, then it doesn't really matter what's going around you so much. As long as you understand that you will be rewarded for the actions that you do, and you'll have to answer for the iniquities that you place upon your fellow man. Then, as long as you know this, then it doesn't really matter what necessarily a lot of the minute details of what's happening. As long as you understand that, as long as you're good and you're righteous and you do what God wants you to do, then everything will be fine. And so as you go through life, I think this is a really important thing. And then so Tuesday was new king who knows not Joseph starts to oppress the Hebrews, and that was that was the theme that I had for Tuesday, the 21st. And it's interesting because obviously when Joseph first came to Egypt, he was, um, the Pharaoh. It says new king. I wonder if it says new. I wonder why it says king. Maybe it was the new Pharaoh though. But I think they did use the word king because I wrote this down. I think verbatim. That's interesting though. They use the word king instead of Pharaoh. But I mean, it's pretty much the same thing. Understand the message that's trying to be conveyed. But when obviously Joseph had really, at first I would imagine, after when Pharaoh died, the first few pharaohs after him, Joseph and the Hebrews, they probably had a really good, they were probably in with the people. But then as time progressed, I would imagine. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm definitely not understand. Or I'm definitely conjecturing because I don't really know. The Bible doesn't say it, but I would imagine that. Um, in my experience in life, at least that I see it, that it often happens when something's new. People like you if you do good, but then as time progresses, it this kind of fades away. And other factors would probably do it. But at any rate, the new king doesn't. Um, The new king knows not Joseph starts to oppress the Hebrews. And I say he knows not Joseph. I imagine, for me at least, that is, because he doesn't remember what Joseph did and how he helped all the Egypt and all the land and all the stuff that he did. And so that's why I have these days of reflection, though, so that way I can reflect on these things and then try to see where God leads me personally. And I think that the way that God speaks to me is different than when God speaks to someone else, so that someone else can see this story in the Bible or this history of the Bible, this event, and get a completely different meaning out of it because God's speaking to them personally. So I think it's important that these subjects are discussed from each person, but I think that it's important that each person has their own interpretation of what's happening in their own relationship with God. I think that's really important. And so Wednesday is Moses, and Moses is the law of Moses. He's really important in establishing the law of the Jews, and so we're not under the law anymore. And so I think it's really difficult a lot of times to see where we are supposed to follow the rules of the Old Testament and Moses' law and where we're not. And I think that we pretty much throw out all of the all the law of the Old Testament. I don't think it has any real bearing because we're not Jews anymore, in the sense of what the Jews were in the Old Testament. We have the new law with the new covenant, and I think that what Moses did and everything, and all the law and everything that he puts down and all the events, their history, they're for us to know and for us to understand what happened. And I think it's really important for us to understand what history is, because how do you know where you're going if you don't know where you've been? And I think really another thing that the Bible does is that most historians don't agree, or they don't give credit to what happened in the Bible as true events. So if historians and academia doesn't give credit to what happened in the Bible as reality, then how can history or academia have the correct view of reality when it comes to any event? And so I think that history that's written by academia is incorrect. And I think that some evidence for that is the fact that academia doesn't have the same view of history as the Bible does. And if academia was correct and it was truth, then it would have the exact same view that the Bible does. And so I think that the further academia and history history and academia gets away from the Bible, then I think that that's exactly how far history is truth, how far it is from reality. So the further history deviates from the Bible, the further academic history deviates from the reality. And so since academia doesn't give really much any credit except for these people who exist, then I think that it shows how inaccurate it is, what history is. And I'm a huge history buff. I used to love history. I was a huge history buff. And now I don't think so much anymore. I think it's lore, nothing more. I don't think history has really any bearing in reality at all. What history is told to us, I think the only history that you can really go by is the Bible. Any other history that you learn from academia, I don't think has really much truth in it, because like I said, the more it deviates away from the Bible, then the less truth it has. And I think that's self-evident, or evident in itself, that the truth that history is not accurate and far from truth. And then so Thursday, God shows his wonders in Egypt and sets his people free. I think that's difficult for a lot of people, at least it is for me sometimes too, because the things that happened in Egypt were pretty rough on the people. And why did God harden Pharaoh's heart? What was that all about? And when I reflect on it, for me personally, the interpretation that I get is that I feel like obviously if these things are happening, anybody would let the Egyptians or let the Israelites go, but the Egyptians didn't. And I think the Egyptians even wanted Pharaoh to, but he just made him stupid and just allowed him, or just blinded him, because I think even the devil would be like, dude, you can't, what are you doing? Just let these people go. This is causing a problem. But because God intervened and just hardened his heart, the devil couldn't do what he wanted to do, because I don't think even the devil would want this, because God is showing his wonders. I don't think the devil wants that. And so I think that if you're slave to sin, then you become slave to the devil. And so why would the devil allow this? Well, God made it happen. He hardened his heart. And so I think that that at least that explanation works for me and what happened. I feel like that's what's told to me and my understanding of reality. And so I think it helps me grow. Is this truly what happened? I have no idea. But I think that it helps me in my relationship with God, at least for where I am right now, for him to kind of help me to understand what's happening in my own personal life and how to act most on his behalf. Okay, and then Friday is Passover, and obviously Passover was pretty intense. And I think a lot of people, at least for me initially, when I first heard of Passover, you think of this angel coming and killing a baby or something, but it's the firstborn. The firstborn in a lot of families are probably pretty old. I mean, if you have a firstborn, he could be 20 years old, and you have kids 30 years old, and you have brothers behind him. So that'd be the firstborn of each family. And so I don't think the angel went and just killed babies. I think it was the firstborn. That could be any age really. And so I think that this depiction of often what you see Passover is this angel coming and killing the children. I don't, and or Pharaoh's child. Who knows how old Pharaoh's child? If Pharaoh was, the same around when Moses was around, so his child would be like 60 or 50 years old. So his firstborn would have been really old. And so I don't think that the firstborn of every household, that would mean like the oldest person's kid. So I think he'd be like 60 years old. Somebody there that's living 80, his kid could be 60. And so if it's the firstborn of every household, then I don't know if each household that would comprise of like the eldest person living in there, and then their firstborn, and then their child's firstborn. I'm not sure exactly how it works. And so I just think that this depiction of just going around killing babies or Pharaoh's child, obviously, I think Pharaoh's child in particular, I think is probably not accurate, because Pharaoh would have been probably around the same age as Moses, which would have been 80 years old. So he probably had a child that was older than, very young. I mean, I don't know though. There's no way to know. But Passover is very interesting, and I think that when they put the blood on the door, on the doorstops, this symbol. I think that also this it would be hard to really understand the terror that would be happening when these angels came and just killed the firstborn. The firstborn might have fought back. You might have had like this battle between these angels and these things between each of these households of many of them fighting them, and then you have like angels that come in and do like these warfare. And so a lot of people just imagine just like a ghost or something going in there. But I think that there was the angel that fights for, I forget which one it is, but he kills all the people outside the city, and I forgot what king it was. And this angel comes and he kills all these people, and then the angel comes and kills a lot of David's army when David tries to number his army. And so I think these angels are not just like shadows. I think that they're real beings that you see. And I think it'd be very terrifying. And I think that it would, alter your view of reality. And I think that, especially now that I feel like we're pretty intelligent, to see these kind of things, it just would really change you for a long time. And people would see the terror in your eyes and in your expression and in your face when they come across you. And so I just think that, what's we're told, and I think unfortunately the religious authority doesn't really give a correct depiction of the Bible in a lot of ways. And I think that movies don't give a correct depiction. And so I'm just trying to do that myself. I'm trying to give a correct depiction of reality, and wanting others to do the same to themselves and to build a relationship with their creator, and not rely on a man to be the mediator between them and God, but to rely on Christ to be the mediator between them and God. And I'm just trying to be an example. I'm trying to grow the church, and I'm trying to learn. I definitely feel like I'm wrong about a lot of things, but I mean, can be considered a younger man or a young man in some people's eyes. And so I feel like I have a lot to grow, and hopefully I can learn more and more as time goes, and I can grow and I can learn. Because obviously I feel like, I don't know about obviously, but I feel like if you feel like you know everything, then you don't have any room to grow. And if you don't have any room to grow, then you can't be pruned. And reality changes, at least here, changes on you. And so if reality changes, which I think it does, because God changes his mind. So if reality changes and you think you know everything, then you might not be able to acclimate to the new reality, and have false views of it because you're not able to change, because you think you already know everything. And so I think that's one of the benefits of being humble, or trying to be humble at least, or seeking it. But at any rate, that's pretty much all I got. So yeah, it was week 3, Exodus 44 through 14. And I hope everyone's doing good, and God bless, and happy truth seeking.